It was the day before Teacher Appreciation Day at Northview High School. The halls were filled with the usual chatter of students, the click of locker doors, and the hum of anticipation. Tomorrow was a special day, and everyone was buzzing about it. It wasn't just any normal event, this was the day when students came together to celebrate the teachers who shaped their lives, to show their gratitude, and to make them feel special. Among the students, there was one teacher who stood out above all the others, Mrs. Green. She was the epitome of the ideal teacher, young, beautiful, always in a good mood, and adored by everyone, students and staff alike. Her reputation was flawless. She had this way of making every student feel like they were the most important person in the room. And every Teacher Appreciation Day, she received the most gifts, the most attention, the most love. As the final bell rang on the last day before the holiday, students crowded into the cafeteria to start preparing. It was tradition, each class would bring gifts, cards, and handmade crafts. The decorations were being set up, banners hung in every corner, and cheerful songs played over the loudspeakers. But not everyone felt the excitement. Tommy Mitchell, a 10th grader, found himself lingering by the school gates. Unlike his peers, who couldn't wait to get home to begin their weekend, he had this unsettling feeling that he couldn't shake. Something about the way the teachers had been acting lately seemed off. The smiles, the forced enthusiasm, it all felt too perfect, too rehearsed. He stood at the gates, staring at the school, when he saw Mrs. Green pass by, talking to a group of students. Her long dark hair swayed gracefully as she walked, her voice carrying in the breeze. She always looked so composed, so confident. Tommy had always admired her, but recently, he couldn't ignore the strange feeling that lingered in the back of his mind whenever she was near. There was something, almost too perfect about her. "Hey, Tommy, what are you doing out here?" came a voice from behind him. He turned to see his best friend, Lucas, walking towards him with a grin. "I don't know, man," Tommy said, shaking his head. "It's just, you ever feel like something's off about Mrs. Green?" Lucas laughed. "Are you serious? She's like the nicest teacher in the school. I mean, who wouldn't want a teacher like her?" Tommy didn't know how to explain it. It wasn't about her being mean or anything like that, it was more the feeling that she was too perfect. "I don't know. It's hard to put into words. It's like she never ages or something." Lucas looked at him with a confused expression. "You're weird, bro. Seriously, don't be a buzzkill. Tomorrow's gonna be awesome. Teacher Appreciation Day. Man, we've gotta go all out for Mrs. Green." Tommy smiled weakly. "Yeah, you're probably right." But deep down, Tommy felt a chill. He couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would bring something he wasn't ready for. This story seems to be getting scarier, doesn't it? If you want more stories like this, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. This helps create even more scary for you. The next day arrived with a sudden burst of energy. Teacher Appreciation Day was finally here, and students flooded the halls with excitement. Everywhere you looked, there were colorful posters, balloons, and handwritten cards made with love. Everyone was in a good mood, everyone, except Tommy. He tried to shake off the feeling of unease that had been gnawing at him, but it was impossible. As the bell rang, marking the start of first period, he found himself sitting at his desk, glancing over at Mrs. Green's classroom door. She was already in there, preparing for the day. She always arrived early, always ready. The bell rang, and students began filing into her class, the usual mix of eager and hesitant faces. Mrs. Green smiled as they entered, greeting each student with warmth that seemed almost too genuine. Her eyes sparkled, and her smile never wavered. "Good morning, class," she said brightly, her voice as smooth as ever. "I hope you all are ready to celebrate today, because we have something very special planned." Tommy sat at the back of the room, watching her closely. He had never noticed how unsettling her smile was until now. It wasn't just the way it didn't seem to fade, no matter what, but the fact that it didn't quite reach her eyes. There was something hollow there, something empty. But the rest of the class didn't seem to notice. They were busy talking and laughing, handing Mrs. Green their cards and gifts. She accepted them with the same unblinking smile, her fingers lightly grazing the edges of the cards. She didn't seem to care what the gifts were, she just smiled, as if her very existence depended on receiving them. When it was Tommy's turn, he hesitated. His hand trembled as he held out a small, hand-drawn card. He had made it the night before. Despite his growing discomfort with the entire day, he wasn't sure what to think anymore. He still wanted to show appreciation for Mrs. Green, but something inside him told him that his gesture wouldn't be enough. "Thank you, Tommy," she said, taking the card with her usual grace. Her fingers brushed against his hand, and Tommy felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "You're welcome," Tommy managed to say, though his voice was barely a whisper. Her eyes locked onto his for a moment longer than necessary, and in that split second, Tommy felt something he couldn't describe, a flicker of recognition, as if she knew something he didn't. "Thank you for the kind words, Tommy," she said softly, her voice almost a murmur. "You always know how to make my day special." Tommy blinked, confused by her tone. He had never spoken to her outside of class, but it felt as though she was speaking directly to his soul, as if she had known him for years. Suddenly, the room fell silent. Mrs. Green's gaze lingered on Tommy for just a bit longer before she smiled again, the warmth returning to her face. "All right, everyone," she said, clapping her hands together. "Let's get started. We have some fun activities planned for today, but first, let's do something special, shall we?" The class murmured in agreement, and Mrs. Green stood up. She moved with the same fluidity as always, but Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. There was an intensity in the air now, an undercurrent of tension. As the class settled in, Mrs. Green began to pass out envelopes to each student. They were thick, with an ornate wax seal on the back. Each envelope was addressed by hand, and there was no name on the outside, just the familiar swirling script that Tommy had come to recognize. "You'll find something inside that's a bit more personal," Mrs. Green said, her voice taking on a soft, almost sing-song tone. "Something to remember me by. I think it will help you realize just how much I appreciate all of you." Tommy hesitated for a moment, then took the envelope from her hand. The wax seal seemed almost too perfect, too deliberate. He ran his fingers over it and felt a strange coldness seeping into his skin. His curiosity outweighed his apprehension, and he carefully opened the envelope. Inside, he found a single card different from the one he had given Mrs. Green. This one was much more elaborate, with intricate designs carved into the edges. The words on the card were written in a flowing, beautiful script. "Thank you for your endless support. I will always remember you." Tommy stared at the words, confused. The message seemed personal, but it didn't make sense. What did she mean by endless support? He hadn't done anything out of the ordinary for her. This wasn't just a thank you note. It felt like a promise, a warning. He glanced around the room at his classmates, but they were all engrossed in their own envelopes. Everyone else looked pleased, even excited. Lucas, sitting beside him, smiled as he read the card. "This is amazing," Lucas whispered. "I didn't think Mrs. Green would do something like this." Tommy didn't respond. He was too focused on the strange feeling gnawing at the pit of his stomach. Something was off. There was something deeply unsettling about the way Mrs. Green had given out those cards, as though the day wasn't about appreciating her. It was about something else entirely. The clock ticked forward, each second seeming to stretch into eternity as the morning passed. Tommy couldn't focus on anything. Every time he glanced at Mrs. Green, she was looking back at him. Her eyes were piercing, like she could see right through him. It was as if she was aware of his every thought, every unease he felt. She was always 2 steps ahead. The class continued, but Tommy's mind was racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was unfolding around him. His friends were all too caught up in the celebrations, but Tommy couldn't ignore the growing dread inside him. At lunch, he decided to skip the cafeteria and instead walked around the back of the school. He needed a moment to clear his head. As he passed the gymnasium, he noticed something strange. A door was slightly ajar, a soft light spilling out from the crack. It wasn't usually open during school hours. His curiosity got the better of him. He stepped closer, pushing the door open just a fraction, careful not to make a sound. Inside, the gym was empty except for Mrs. Green. She was standing in front of the old school stage, her back to him, her hands raised as if she were performing some kind of ritual. Tommy froze, watching her. Her voice was low, almost a chant, as if she were speaking to someone or something out of sight. "Thank you for your loyalty," she whispered, her voice carrying an odd, almost hypnotic rhythm. "Thank you for your endless devotion. You will serve me well, as always." Tommy's heart skipped a beat. Who was she talking to? He stepped back, trying to retreat quietly, but as he did, a floorboard creaked beneath him. Mrs. Green spun around, her face immediately shifting into a bright, welcoming smile. "Tommy," she exclaimed, her tone suddenly cheerful. "What a lovely surprise. I was just thinking of you." Tommy's breath caught in his throat. How could she have known he was there? He hadn't made a sound, and yet she seemed to sense his presence, just as she always did. I didn't mean to interrupt," Tommy stammered, forcing himself to speak. "I was just passing by." She stepped closer, her heels clicking sharply on the wooden floor. Her smile didn't fade. In fact, it seemed to widen, as if she were pleased to see him. "Oh, Tommy, you're never an interruption," she said, her voice smooth and soothing, but something about it felt off, like it wasn't entirely human. "I was just practicing a little something for tomorrow's class. You know how much I love making things memorable for my students." Tommy nodded, though his stomach churned. "Right, well, I should probably get back to class." Before he could turn to leave, Mrs. Green placed a hand on his arm. It was light, but her touch sent a shock through him, cold and electric. Her fingers lingered there longer than necessary. "Tommy," she said softly, almost tenderly, "I've been thinking about you a lot. You're a bright boy, aren't you? You have such potential. It's no surprise that someone like me would notice." Tommy's mind raced. Her words didn't make sense. He had always been a quiet student, nothing extraordinary. Yet, here she was, speaking to him like he was something special, something important. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I've got to go." Mrs. Green smiled again, that unnerving, wide smile. "Of course, Tommy, but remember, I'm always watching, always appreciating." Tommy recoiled slightly at her words, and before he could stop himself, he darted out of the gymnasium and into the hallway. His pulse was racing, his heart pounding in his chest. What the hell was happening? He had to tell someone, but who would believe him? Everyone else was too caught up in the festivities of the day, too consumed by the idea of showing their appreciation for Mrs. Green. He needed to get out of there. Tommy spent the rest of the day in a haze, his mind preoccupied with what he'd seen. By the time the final bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, he felt like he was walking in a fog. The halls were emptying out, the noise of excited students gradually fading away, but Tommy's feet didn't take him home. No, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover, something he needed to find. He made his way back to the gym. It was darker now, the sun having dipped below the horizon. The school was eerily quiet. When Tommy reached the door to the gym, he paused. His hand trembled as he pushed it open. This time, the gym was empty. No Mrs. Green, but something felt different. There, on the stage, was a wooden box. It was old and worn, as if it had been there for decades. The box was covered in strange markings, symbols that seemed to twist and writhe under the dim light of the room. Tommy stepped closer, his heart pounding in his chest. On top of the box lay a single item, a small, ornate key. Its surface glimmered in the low light, almost as if it were calling to him. Before he could touch it, a voice broke the silence. "You shouldn't have come back, Tommy." Tommy spun around. Standing in the doorway of the gym was Mrs. Green, her eyes locked on him. Her smile was gone now, replaced by something far more unsettling. Her face was as cold as stone, her expression one of something ancient, something that had been waiting for this moment. "You're too late," she whispered, her voice low and chilling. "The door has already opened." Tommy's heart slammed against his ribs as Mrs. Green slowly stepped toward him, her gaze never leaving his. The gym felt colder now, the shadows deeper, as if the walls themselves were closing in on him. He glanced at the wooden box on the stage, his mind racing. What had she meant when she said, "The door has already opened"? What do you mean?" Tommy stammered, his voice shaking as he took a step back. Mrs. Green didn't answer immediately. She simply watched him with a strange intensity, her lips curling into a slight, knowing smile. For a moment, she seemed almost pleased with his confusion. "The door," she repeated softly, "is a gift, a very old gift, passed down from one teacher to the next." She took another step forward, and Tommy's instinct screamed for him to run, but his legs refused to move. Her presence was overpowering. "It's not a gift for everyone, Tommy. Only those who truly understand what it means to appreciate someone, to serve them." Tommy's pulse was racing, but he forced himself to speak. "What are you talking about? What's in the box?" Mrs. Green's eyes flickered toward the wooden box on the stage, and for the first time, there was a shadow of something dark in her expression, something almost hungry. "The key, Tommy. That's what you're here for." Tommy's breath caught in his throat. "The key? What key?" She smiled, a cold, hollow smile. "The key to what makes Teacher Appreciation Day truly special. The key to immortality." Tommy's mind reeled, and he felt a dizzying rush of fear. "Immortality? You're telling me that you..." She nodded, her voice low and deadly serious. "Yes, for centuries, teachers like me have maintained our youth by taking the gratitude of those we've taught and using it to feed our souls." Her eyes gleamed with a predatory shine. "Gratitude, Tommy, is the most powerful force in the world. When a student truly appreciates their teacher, their admiration, especially on a day like this, becomes the fuel for something much darker." Tommy swallowed hard, trying to make sense of her words. "But, why me? Why are you telling me this?" Mrs. Green's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. "Because you're the one who will carry it forward. You'll be the next to take the key and unlock the door. You'll be the next teacher." Tommy recoiled, the reality of her words crashing down on him like a tidal wave. No, I don't want any part of this." "Too late," she whispered. "The door is already open." Before he could react, she was upon him, faster than he could have imagined. Her fingers wrapped around his wrist with a grip that felt like steel. Tommy gasped, trying to pull away, but she was impossibly strong. "Let go of me," he screamed, his voice hoarse. But Mrs. Green didn't respond. She simply smiled, her eyes cold and emotionless. "You don't understand, Tommy. You've been chosen, just like all the others before you. Don't you remember the card you received? It's not just a thank you note. It's a binding contract. You've been marked, Tommy." Her words echoed in his head as a cold realization swept over him. The card, the strange writing, the way she had touched him so deliberately, so intimately. She hadn't just been thanking him, she had been claiming him. No way, I didn't." "Shoo." Mrs. Green's voice was like a lullaby, soothing yet terrifying. She gently pressed her palm to his forehead, and for a moment, Tommy felt a wave of dizziness rush over him. His body went slack, his muscles locking up, as though he were losing control. The gym around him began to blur, the walls warping and shifting like a dream. Tommy could barely keep his eyes open, but he managed to catch one final, desperate glimpse of Mrs. Green's face. Her smile was the last thing he saw before everything went black. When Tommy awoke, he was no longer in the gymnasium. The lights were dim, and the air was thick, almost suffocating. His body ached as if he had been asleep for days. He tried to move, but his arms and legs felt heavy. He could barely open his eyes. "Welcome to your new reality, Tommy," came a familiar voice. It was Mrs. Green. Tommy's eyes snapped open, and he found himself standing in a darkened classroom. The walls were lined with strange symbols, just like the ones he had seen on the wooden box in the gym. The desk in front of him was covered in ancient-looking books and strange artifacts, the air thick with the smell of incense and dust. You did this to me," Tommy whispered, his throat dry and scratchy. "You made me part of this." Mrs. Green stood in front of him, her face soft and almost loving, but there was something unsettling about her now. Her eyes weren't just cold, they were empty, devoid of humanity. "I didn't make you anything, Tommy. You made the choice. You accepted the gratitude. You accepted the key." Tommy's hands trembled as he looked at the small, ornate key that lay on the desk in front of him. It was exactly like the one from the gym. "I was just a student," Tommy said weakly. "Why me? Why not someone else?" Mrs. Green smiled, that same unnerving smile that sent a chill straight to his bones. "Because you were ready, Tommy. You were the one who truly understood the value of what we do, what we give. And now, it's your turn to give, to pass it on." Tommy's blood ran cold. The finality in her voice sent a shiver down his spine. The door had indeed opened, and now, he was bound to the same fate as all the teachers before him. "You will continue the tradition, Tommy. You'll take your place, just as I did, just as they all did." The room seemed to close in on him as Mrs. Green's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Tommy could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him, suffocating him. There was no escaping it now. He had been chosen. He had become the next teacher. And now, it was his turn to wait for the next student who would carry the key. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts on this terrifying story, and subscribe for more spine-chilling horror tales.